Subchapter 3.2. Rick was tempted, that he had to admit. The time he was burning to install the modifications on Acey-Deucey could have been used to launch an immediate pursuit, to chase down the perpetrators on Dukis and mete out vengeance. He did not have to make the changes. When QR made Acey-Deucey operational, he could have jumped at that very moment and charged at full speed to Dukis. But he could not allow himself to be that impulsive, that reckless. Good way to make mistakes. The mods had to be done. There was no other way around that conclusion. Acey-Deucey needed to be properly armed and shielded, considering who they were going up against, or their visit to Dukis was going to be a short one. Get away from Evergreen City. He had to get as far from that city and Catherine as possible. Someplace safe. Someplace where he and QR could disappear and work in anonymity, unnoticed. In the dark. Rick checked the maps and found a suitable area halfway across the continent, 2,000 miles from Evergreen. Barrett Flats may have been a bleak, arid wasteland, but most people spurned this type of harsh environment, making it the perfect location to upgrade the Deuce. And with the dynamic camouflage netting Rick had found in Cody's shop, the ship would be rendered completely invisible even to surveillance satellites overhead. Once in place and activated, the netting would sample the surrounding area and compose and project a matching image that would be entirely seamless from edge to edge. After camp had been established, Rick and QR's first task was to mount the garrison Gatling guns, one for the nose, the other at the tail. A housing for each gun would have to be created, requiring the hull to be cut away and constructing a frame to hold the weapons. Once mounted and connected to power and fire control systems, the hull section that was cut out would be made into a door, which would open when the gun was activated. It would then close and seal with proper heat shielding to protect the ship during re-entries. With the bulk of this work behind them, QR turned his attention to the shield system. The tech consisted of a couple of dozen emitters that would be placed in various areas scattered throughout the ship, and a central field generator, which was installed below the main cabin deck. After a brief examination, QR learned that the shields would be most effective against small and medium arms, but could withstand only 1 or 2 hits from larger cannon fire. They were completely useless against the biggest and most powerful cannons found on large capital ships, cruisers, and battleships, for example. Rick did not anticipate that Acey-Deucey would be taking on ships of that size, but had to admit that he could not rule out the possibility, however remote. Some pirate clans were that well armed. Work on the nose garrison had extended well into the night. The tail gun was tracking well, but the nose gun was noticeably sluggish. QR made frequent trips from the cockpit computers to the nose outside and back, sometimes muttering in annoyance, sometimes humming an upbeat tune. Rick stood in the beam of one of the lamps on a stand to one side of Acey-Deucey's nose. He had seen enough of QR's perfectionism and activated his oral comms. QR, I think you got it. Let me see how they move. Inside the cockpit, QR shook his head, unsure. Give me another minute. You've had plenty of minutes. Give me a side-to-side sweep. Okay, hold on. QR punched in a few more commands and then gripped the control stick. The nose gun swept from right to left, back and forth. Rick studied the gun's movements. That looks good. Okay, tilt up. QR pulled back on the stick and the guns angled upward. Down. The barrels pointed down. All around. The guns turned and tilted in all directions. QR smiled. Movement is quick and responsive. Might I suggest a firing test? You read my mind. Rick peered into the darkness surrounding them. He could see only one likely target. It stood about 50 yards away, silhouetted against the glow of God's Hand Nebula on the horizon. There's a rock formation at your 10 o'clock, Rick said. Give it a 3-second burst. I see it. Rick stood back, giving the weapon all the respect it deserved. The Gatlings blazed to life, spitting a barrage of white-hot plasma bolts at the pile of sandstone. 3 seconds later, the guns went quiet, and the spinning barrels slowed to a stop. Rick peered at the target area and waited for the dust to settle. He saw the horizon come into view, the distant glow of the night sky pushing its way through the falling dust. The rocks, gone. QR, thanks to you, Barrett Flats is now a little more flat. The pleasure is all mine. Coming down. Rick stepped over to the nose guns, reached into his breast pocket, and pulled out a white marker. He tapped the side of the guns to check its temperature, and satisfied he would not burn his hands, he set the marker to a smooth, flat surface and wrote out a capital W. QR came down the ramp and joined Rick at the nose. I take it that was to your satisfaction. Very much to my satisfaction. Rick continued writing letters on the gun's side without looking away. QR, you are a genius. He wrote out the last letter and stepped back. The white letters stood out against the black metal. Widowmaker. Rick, if I didn't know better, I'd say you're serious. It's a name I give to the big guns. QR thought about that, bringing to mind Rick's statement about commanding covert assault teams. Okay, what is it about yourself you haven't yet told me? I'm a vet. 6 years, Space Force. Special Forces, Rangers. Ah, that explains a lot. QR hesitated before asking his next question. Then, have you ever, made any widows? Rick turned that one over in his mind and decided this was not a good time for that conversation. I think it's time to wrap it up. Let's get off this rock. As a tactical fighting vessel, the IPS corvette Apache was not suited for ship-to-ship engagements unless the opposing ship was lightly armed and equally unfit for large-scale battles. At 147 feet long, corvettes were designed mainly for speed and agility, and as staging platforms for manned surface expeditions. Their armaments consisted of 6 medium gun turrets, 3 topside, 3 bottom, 2 forward each side, 1 aft each side, and a dozen anti-spacecraft guns spread all over for smaller targets such as fighters. Corvettes were the largest ships in IPS's inventory, in need of nothing bigger. Their primary missions were to catch criminals, not slugging it out with battleships to gain control of space territory. That job was for the military, for Space Force. Catherine studied the screens on the Apache's bridge, lost in thought. She had been analyzing images from the surveillance satellites, one image in particular. Blotches of blue, black, and dark green covered the display, but the mix of colors intrigued her. Agent Soto approached Catherine from behind and came to her side. You wanted to see me? Take a look at this. Catherine pointed to a blue shape on the screen. A flicker of light sputtered to life and winked out after a few seconds. Just a pinpoint. What is it? Soto asked. An energy burst. Just a few seconds. Very strong. Lightning? There are no storms there. It's a gun test. What is this area? Soto looked at another screen, which showed a larger area. Maybe somewhere around Barrett Flats. That's about 2,000 miles from their last known location. You think it's them? Look at the enhanced image. Catherine slid her finger across the screen. The blue, black, and green splotches changed hue and contrast. A vague, dark brown and red blot stood out from the other abstract shapes. You see it? Catherine asked. Soto squinted at the screen and thought the colorful image would serve a better purpose hung on the wall as art. I'm not sure. There's a ship there. They've got it camouflaged. I still don't see it. No matter. I'm ordering the sentries to converge on this area. Organize a landing party. We'll take them by surprise. The matter had been weighing on QR's mind, and as neither he nor Rick had said a word about it for all these days, QR could no longer keep silent. Rick was stowing away food packs in a storage bin behind QR on the bridge, while QR idly watched the computer screens, his thoughts elsewhere. He glanced back at Rick. Rick, the time we spent on the upgrades. It's been 9 days now since the attack on your ship, plus the 3 days to get to Dukis. Rick looked back at QR and nodded. The same thoughts had been clawing at him as well. I know what you're getting at. Sarah won't be on Dukis, will she? No. Slaves are typically sent straight to the auction block the day they're brought in. I'm afraid she's already gone. That's assuming that pirate ship went to Dukis straight away after attacking my ship. True, but we don't know if at the time of your encounter, whether it was at the beginning of its patrol or the end. Well, either way, if somebody bought her and we're late, they'll have record of it. I want those records. I'm gonna find out who bought her. Rick's tone turned dark. When I do, I'm gonna pay him a little visit. QR was about to agree with him. The auction houses kept records, but a flashing blip on QR's console's screen diverted his attention. He leaned in to make sure that what he was seeing was accurate. Rick, they've changed. Rick dropped a food pack and strode to QR's side. What is it? Sentry ships. They've changed course. Going where? QR studied the data as it came in. Looks like... here. Rick straightened. I was afraid of that. Our gun test tipped her off. Time to scoot. How soon can we get airborne? We have to get the netting off the ship first. I'd say 20 minutes. And what's their ETA? About the same. 5,000 miles away and 220 miles up, a landing craft pulled away from the Apache. Inside, 10 IPS agents sat on benches along both sides, all dressed in battle dress uniform, helmets, guns, and body armor. They had been sent to reinforce Catherine's team when she informed HQ of the escalating mission status. A gravity well in the landing craft kept everyone in their seats. Catherine stood before the agents. Take the precaution that McCabe and QR are armed and willing to engage in combat. We will land in stealth mode about 200 meters from their camp and proceed on foot. Are there any questions? Heads shook, and no one spoke. Catherine gave a quick nod. Rick pulled off the remaining camouflage netting and bundled it up, intent on packing it away in one of the bins inside. But as he ran up the ramp to the ship's interior, he became impatient, dropped the netting to the deck, and jumped into the pilot's seat. QR had already started Acey-Deucey's engines, which idled at a low hum. As the engines were warming up, he read the data that streamed into the ship's computers. They're on foot already, which means they have a stealth landing craft. I'm impressed. Their ETA? 2 minutes? 90 seconds? They're already in gun range. Time to test that shield generator. Got it. QR hit a switch and a new hum, different from the engines, rose in pitch. Let's hope it's worth that $2,000, Rick said. Okay, punch it. The Acey-Deucey's thrusters fired up, and the ship rose from the ground in a cloud of dust. 50 meters away, Catherine and her team watched as the Deuce cleared the dust and headed in their direction. Catherine pointed at the ship and yelled, "Open fire!" Gunfire erupted as the agents all pulled their triggers. They all scored hits, but the energy from their weapons was absorbed into the ship's shields and dissipated. Catherine watched as Acey-Deucey soared right over their heads, 100 feet up, and headed for the skies, gaining speed, unharmed, not so much as a scratch. Catherine ceased fire and stared, as did the other agents. The thought of how foolish they all looked, heavily armed IPS agents, standing there like incompetent buffoons, gazing at their target escaping with ease, set flames to Catherine's eyes. "Back to the ship!" she shouted. "Now!" By the time Catherine and her agents rushed back to the landing craft, Acey-Deucey was already in orbit, breaking into sunlight. Rick guided Acey-Deucey as QR studied incoming data. "Someone tell Mr. Cody he has a regular customer," Rick said. "Not yet. We've got a swarm of sentry ships closing in on us." Rick double-checked the computers. "Any ideas?" These sentries are drones. No live crews. Just blast them. I like the way you think. Power up the garrisons. But they're small and fast, and armed, and about 300 of them. Rick looked out the main canopy before them. He saw specks moving in the distance. And here they come. Too many of them, switching gun control to automatic. Outside, Acey-Deucey charged forward as the cloud of sentry drones came at them, guns blazing. The drones were about the size of a small car, armed with a single P-beam cannon. Their main purpose was surveillance, but one sentry became an effective offensive weapon when teamed up with others in a pack. And this pack opened fire on Acey-Deucey as they bore down on the Sundog. The Deuce released fire from its nose gun garrisons, taking out the small drones in flashes of light. Scores of the sentries, ripped and shredded, the remains of their frames and bodies were scattered and tumbling through space. But many of the sentries' shots scored hits. A hailstorm of plasma rounds from the sentries struck Acey-Deucey's shields, which held firm. The Sundog flew right through the mass and emerged on the other side unharmed. The remaining sentries now found themselves behind Acey-Deucey, flying in the opposite direction, far from their target. They were forced to pull themselves into a wide arc to regain the Deuce. Inside Acey-Deucey's cockpit, QR checked his computers for an update. That went as well as expected. Sentries are now far behind us and trying to catch up. Rick's answer was simple. Tail gun, please. Way ahead of you. Rick thought he could have easily punched the throttles and outrun the drones, but he wanted to see how well the tail gun would perform. He let the sentries catch up, and when they did, Acey-Deucey opened fire from its tail gun, smashing more drones into pieces. QR watched the battle progress on his screens. Only about a dozen left, he said, but Rick's attention was elsewhere. Forget about him. We've got someone showing up late to the party. QR glanced at Rick's display. What's up? An IPS Corvette, dead ahead. A dreadful thought sprang up in QR's mind at the sound of Corvette. Ooh, their guns are kinda big. Just the type of weapon that could knock out their shields in 1 or 2 hits. Besides that, Rick said, they're in our way. We have to get past the Corvette to get to the jump point. What's the plan? Rick grabbed the throttles and shoved them full forward. Power! All of it! Acey-Deucey surged forward as the sublights went full power. QR's eyes widened. James Soto watched the computer screens over the shoulder of the weapons control officer. All crew members on the Apache's bridge were on alert, eyes on their stations, tense, ready to jump at any order. Soto saw the ship's leap in velocity. What the hell are they doing? The young man at weapons control peered at his screen, wondering if he was reading it right. Looks like they're heading straight at us, accelerating. Which makes them a direct threat to this ship. Engage target and destroy. Aye, sir. Rick gripped the controls for Acey-Deucey and jerked the ship in sharp, erratic movements. Right now they're targeting us, he said. But their computers have to calculate where we are going to be at a certain point in space, so their gunfire can hit us at that point. Keep jinking the Deuce, you'll fool the computers. QR nodded. Brilliant. Old school, my friend. You want me to open fire on them? No. They got a crew, and I don't want to hurt anyone. Speed and agility are all we need. Just the last thing he needed. Murder charges on top of human trafficking. Got it. Good call. As Soto watched, Lieutenant Singh, the weapons control officer, worked his computer in a flurry of taps and swipes. Fire when ready, Mr. Singh. I am ready, but the computer's having a hard time with this one. He's jinking. Do your best. The Apache's cannons blasted away at the charging Acey-Deucey, but scored no hits. As the Sundog dipped and weaved, all rounds from the Apache missed its target. Soto turned his eyes to the windows and saw in the distance Acey-Deucey heading straight in, right at the bridge, bobbing up and down, side to side. Soto's eyes widened as the chances of an impact became increasingly probable with each passing second. "Close bulkhead doors. Prepare for collision." Alarms sounded off throughout the Apache, and bulkhead doors slammed shut. Acey-Deucey raced toward Apache's bridge. In the Sundog's cockpit, Rick leaned in, completely focused on his timing. And just when a spectacular impact was imminent, Acey-Deucey jerked upward, barely missing the Apache. On the Apache, Soto and the bridge crew ducked instinctively as the Sundog streaked overhead. Rick leaned back, bringing the controls and the ship back on its course to the jump point. QR brought his head up after he had ducked, sure he was about to be blown to atoms. "Whoa, that's close, Rick. I didn't want to hurt them, but thought I'd send a message." "Like what? Look out, we're suicidal?" Rick chuckled and tapped his screens. "Plot a course to Dukis. Jump point about a minute away." QR checked his computer. "The Corvette's making a slow turn to pursue. By the time it gets lined up, we'll be long gone. At the speed they're going, by the time we get turned around, they'll be long gone, Agent Soto." Soto kept his eyes on the front window, lost in thought. What was that? That ship? What the hell were they flying? Singh tapped his computer and brought up data from the scans. Seems to be, if I'm reading this right, a cruise craft Sundog. A what? Did you say a Sundog? Singh rechecked his computer to be sure. Yes, sir. A fastback. The Apache slowed to recover the landing craft. After securing the shuttle in the docking bay, the Apache resumed the pursuit. Soto stood outside the airlock, waiting. When the doors slid open, Catherine and her landing party strode in. "Catherine," Soto said, "welcome back." Catherine turned toward the bridge and marched at a quick step, her eyes dead ahead. Soto paced alongside her. Catherine's voice was steely. "Agent, can you explain to me how a civilian spacecraft was able to elude 300 sentry ships and a direct barrage from this ship's cannons?" "They made some upgrades on their ship." "Illegal upgrades. I'll be entering that in my next report to HQ. If we catch them, I got dibs on their ship." Catherine and Soto passed through the main corridor and onto the bridge. Crew members tried to look busy, with heads down in focused concentration and fingers tapping at computer screens, hoping not to draw Catherine's attention. "Where are they now?" Catherine asked the weapons control officer. "They are out of range, Special Agent," Singh said. "Light years out of Aranean space by now." Catherine stared out the window, perhaps thinking she could catch a glimpse of the renegade civilian ship in the distance, but all she could see were stars. Soto leaned over to Singh. 6 Alcubierres. 6. You only need 2, Singh said. Lay in a course to Dukis, Catherine ordered. If they wish to take this fight all the way to that planet, I'll be happy to oblige them.